Hello, you're watching News Mongolia on MNB World, and I'm your host, Jargalma Tushinjaral. On the news, Mongolia today. Mongolia-Austria Business Forum convenes. Project supporting climate change adaptation to be implemented in rural areas. President of Turkmenistan to pay a state visit to Mongolia. For the news, stay tuned. At the invitation of the President of Mongolia, Hursuhokhna, the Federal President of the Republic of Austria, Alexander von der Bellen, paid a state visit to Mongolia from May 25th to 28th. On May 27th, the Mongolian National Chamber of Commerce and Industry and the Austrian Federal Economic Chamber, with support from Euro Chamber Mongolia, jointly organized the Mongolia-Austria Business Forum in Ulaanbaatar. President Hursulh and President von der Bellen delivered opening remarks at the forum. President Hursulh emphasized that Mongolia had improved its investment policy and remained committed to being a trustworthy and reliable long-term partner. He encouraged businesses to take advantage of the EU's generalized system of preferences, which allows 7,200 Mongolian products to enter the EU market duty-free, and invited them to attend the Mongolia-EU Business and Investment Forum in October 2025.
Mongolia is working to implement 14 strategically important mega projects. The knowledge, experience, advanced technology, innovation, the investment of Austrian businesses, our reliable partners and representatives of a highly industrialized nation are of vital importance.
President von der Bellen highlighted that strengthening trade and investment ties would support economic growth and enhance people-to-people connections. He stated that Austria was ready to share its experience and proven solutions in key sectors, such as agriculture, tourism, infrastructure, healthcare, and energy. He expressed confidence that Mongolia's dynamic economic development would continue to attract Austrian businesses and pave the way for lasting partnerships.
As you said, this is my first visit to Mongolia. It's the first visit of a federal president of Austria to Mongolia after more than 60 years of bilateral diplomatic relations. Our two countries are more related than what you expect at the moment. For instance, we are democracies, obviously, the rule of law and the system of checks and balances, and the political systems are really similar, and the geography of Mongolia between Russia and China, if you look at that, your expectations are perhaps different. So we feel really like third neighbors, as the official wording is, and it's true. So in commerce, business, in science and research, we have many common interests. I'm convinced of that. They already exist, but they can always improve. So there's, in German you would say there's Platz nach oben, Raum nach oben, meaning you can improve them, you can intensify these relations, and this meeting here, concentrated on business, shows that there's really a lot of interest on both sides. But the same applies to science, to research, to music, for instance, where we had meetings yesterday.
Especially all the projects in the infrastructure sector, the development of a new capital, where the whole expertise of European and Austrian companies can be useful. Also optimizing the traffic, optimizing the healthcare sector within these 14 projects are areas where we can do good business together.
The business forum brought together representatives from around 80 Mongolian companies and 22 Austrian enterprises across 7 sectors. Mongolia has exported products such as tungsten ore and concentrate, leather clothing, de-haired cashmere, raw materials, animal products, and foodstuffs to Austria. Mongolia has imported Austrian equipment, machinery, chemicals, energy products, electrical appliances, and automation technology.
We had already a project. Our technology is used for the power utility like UBDN. So this is the technology to find weaknesses in the underground cable network, and weaknesses that are there cause power outages. Last year there were around 1,400 power outages only in Ulaanbaatar, and 65% are related to these underground cables. And we have just had the honor that we could deliver one of these mobile laboratories that can find these weaknesses very quickly, and also include this technology to diagnose cable networks that we can prevent further outages. So our aim is to support UBDN and the city with more such systems, and our experience of how to read these readings of these diagnostics, and then to do the exact action that is needed in order to prevent further outages. So in a large scale, in long term, if this is a project applied with our support, these outages can be reduced a lot.
In 2024, bilateral trade reached $39.54 million, with Mongolia exporting $5.03 million in goods and importing $34.51 million. These accounted for 0.23% of Mongolia's foreign trade and 2.4% of its trade with EU member states. The launch ceremony of the Supporting Climate Change Adaptation in Mongolia project was held on May 26th. The project is being financed by the China International Development Cooperation Agency and will be jointly implemented by the Mongolian Red Cross Society and the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. Globally, the number of natural disaster and hazardous events driven by climate change is becoming increasingly frequent. In Mongolia, natural disasters increased by 26% over the past decade compared to the previous 10 years, with associated economic losses rising by 47%. The severe drought in 2023 and 2024 led to the loss of 8.1 million livestock and caused widespread socio-economic disruption, affecting 186,000 herder households. We believe that stopping climate change and minimizing its negative impacts by making herders and the public more knowledgeable and experienced will help protect them from potential risks. China is implementing many measures to combat climate change. In addition to taking action domestically, it plans to assist developing countries and work collaboratively to address the issue. Aimed at strengthening the capacity of communities to adapt to climate change, reduce disaster risks, and build resilient livelihoods, particularly among vulnerable and at-risk groups, the project will be implemented in Bayonhongor, Goivalta, Dongov, and Umungov provinces. The project will benefit around 20,000 people, with 5,000 receiving direct support. There is a need to continue implementing projects and programs that focus on early response measures and enhancing local capacity. Strengthening our local organizations will minimize the impact on herders' livelihoods, especially for vulnerable groups such as people with disabilities and women herders who are heads of households. The project team will establish early warning and response systems in targeted provinces and slums, raise public awareness and knowledge about climate issues, enhance institutional capacity, and support the development of climate-related policies. Now let's take a look at Mongolian current affairs. At the invitation of President of Mongolia Khurelsukhna, President of Turkmenistan Sirdar Berdimuhamedov will pay a state visit to Mongolia on June 1st and 2nd. The visit will be the first visit by the head of state of Turkmenistan since the establishment of diplomatic relations between the two countries in 1992. The visit follows President Khurelsukhna's state visit to Turkmenistan in 2024. President Khurelsukh and President Berdimuhamedov will hold official talks and discuss expanding and developing friendly relations and cooperation between the two countries, as well as cooperation in regional and international arenas. Mongolia and Turkmenistan established diplomatic relations on April 23, 1992. During the regular session of the Parliament's Budget Standing Committee on May 28, committee members held the final discussion of the bill on the 2026 Budget Framework Statement, the Budget Outlook for 2027 through 2028, and an accompanying draft resolution. In accordance with the law, Parliament is required to deliberate and adopt strategic documents and a draft of the medium-term budget framework statement by June 1st of each year. The bill projects economic growth at 6% in 2026 and 6.5% in 2027 and 2028. It also sets the inflation target at 7% for 2026, 6.4% for 2027, and 6% for 2028. To curb inflation, the government of Mongolia plans to implement comprehensive reforms in agriculture, ensure a stable food supply increase, boost Mongolia's foreign currency reserves, and limit the expansion of state expenditures. Here are the currency exchange rates provided by Mongol Bank. Next, our program will turn our attention to foreign news, partnered with international news agencies. Fighting between Russia and Ukraine continues to escalate, with both sides reporting heavy clashes and accusing each other of drone attacks. Russia claims to have intercepted over 2,000 Ukrainian drones, while Ukraine says Russian forces have launched nearly 1,000 missiles and drones in just 3 days. Both Russia and Ukraine reported ongoing battles across the front lines and accused each other of drone attacks, according to the latest updates from both sides. The Russian Defense Ministry said that, starting May 20th, the Ukrainian army has launched numerous attacks on civilian facilities within Russian territory using Western-made drones and rockets. As of this day, Russian air defense systems had destroyed and intercepted more than 2,000 Ukrainian attack drones, the ministry said. In response to Ukrainian attacks, Russian forces have conducted cluster strikes using air-based, sea-based, and land-based high-precision weapons and drones on Ukrainian military installations and military industrial enterprises, including missile and artillery depots, military airports, radar stations, and temporary deployment points of foreign mercenaries, the ministry said. Meanwhile, the General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces said that as of Tuesday afternoon, Ukrainian forces had engaged in dozens of battles with Russian forces on the front lines, with the most intense fighting occurring in the Pokrovsk region. Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha said on social media on Monday that over the past 3 days, Russian forces had launched nearly 1,000 missiles and drones into Ukrainian territory, demonstrating that Russia is not seeking peace but rather continuing the war. He called on NATO to use all means to dispel Russia's illusion of being able to win the war. In another development, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz said on Monday that Germany and its allies had lifted restrictions on the range of weapons supplied to Ukraine. In response, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said on Monday that if European countries lift restrictions on the range of weapons supplied to Ukraine, it would signify an escalation of the conflict, and the European actions are unhelpful in peacefully resolving the Russia-Ukraine conflict. On the same day, Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova said that Merz's remarks were self-promotion. Zakharova added that, in her opinion, any German weapon will not change the course of the special military operation. Alright, that's all for today. Thank you for staying with us. We will see you tomorrow with more news and updates. Goodbye.